Hello everyone, my name is Matthew Perez and this is my Week 7 multimedia discussion titled Conflict Management and Training in the Workplace. In this video presentation, I'll be discussing 4 different resources that you can use to resolve conflict, and then I'll be providing a conflict scenario along with a dispute resolution design for that conflict scenario, and then I'll be providing training recommendations. So let's begin. The first article I'd like to talk about is one from Uri, Brett, and Goldberg. That may sound familiar because the author in the textbook uses the same researchers in a different article that was written in 1988, and this one was written in 1990. But it still talked about design systems for resolving conflict, and I thought it was interesting that the journal went into detail about the 6 principles of the dispute design system. Was interesting on the, if you do read this article, on page 167, there's a menu of procedures from least costly to most costly, and I put it here in the middle, as you can see, and it was similar to the table from chapter 8. It was table 8.1, and that's found on the textbook, page 166. And that one showed the levels of intervention for dispute resolution design, and that one went from informal to formal and from low cost to high cost. So you could sort of see how it's a similar table as a textbook, and it just reinforces what the textbook was saying on design systems. The second reference I'd like to talk about is a video I found on YouTube in which Dr. Michelle D'Amico, as you can see in the middle, talks about how to overcome conflict. What was interesting, at the 1 minute mark, she talks about the 3 C's to turn conflict into opportunity, which are communication, collaboration, and compromise. And that was similar to the topic in the textbook in chapter 9, when it discusses the conflict management training programs, which are found on page 185. The third reference I like to talk about is another YouTube video I found entitled How to Deal with Workplace Conflicts. And what was interesting about this video is at the 1 minute and 30-second mark, it provides 4 tips to handle conflict. The 4 tips is to stop assuming and to control your emotions, and to approach a conflict with an open mind, and to view conflict as an opportunity. So that was similar to chapter 8 of the textbook's discussion, where they provided the 10 tips for basic problem solving skills, but the video just had it more condensed, and that found on page 197 of your textbook. The fourth reference I like to talk about is a training video I found on YouTube where it reenacts interpersonal conflict within the workplace. And so it gives all these different scenarios and shows how somebody may react to it the wrong way, and then how you can react to it the right way. So at the 2 minute and 50-second mark, it demonstrates the skills needed to avoid conflict into 4 different skills. So the first one was to control your emotions, and the second one was to put yourself in the other person's shoes. The other item they said is to be an active listener when engaging with that person. And then finding something in common. They said try to end the conversation where, even though there may be conflict between the two, find common ground to finish the conversation. So I thought that this training video was similar to the textbook in chapter 9, where it talks about how to train staff on learning proactive skills from preventing conflict before it escalates. So the conflict scenario I like to discuss, I'm going to use the Riverside County Sheriff as an example, and how they have 10 different patrol stations in a county that's the same size of New Jersey. And each patrol station accounting staff have their own procedures on how to do the accounts receivable, accounts payable, purchasing, and payroll. And so they're working in pretty much like silos from one another. So if one person was transferred from one station to the other, they had to learn the new process on how to get the same work that they were doing, but just a different process. So that can create conflict between the different accounting locations. One process may be more effective than the other, and it creates conflict between management and from the accounting level, and then also from the sworn staff, who also get transferred to different patrol stations and may have different processes when handling payroll or when they want to buy something. So now I'd like to discuss a dispute resolution design to help resolve this conflict. And that can be done by reviewing the levels of intervention for dispute resolution design. And so that first phase would be the manager who's in charge of patrol accounting staff to recognize that there is a conflict of each station working in silos. And the next phase would be to explore the different methods of resolving that conflict. And so the manager could pursue a facilitated discussion between the supervisors at each location and figure out how to develop a standardized procedure where each station will have the same county procedures. So if any staff's transferred, they'll know how to fill in for those at that other station. So the third phase would be the county manager to review what the supervisors come up with from the facilitated discussion, and then they'll have meetings to reevaluate the procedures. And then the fourth phase would be to have a discussion and negotiation between the supervisor, manager, and sworn administrative staff. So to make sure everybody's on board, it would be critical that the manager has the supervisors knowing what their role is, and also informing the sworn staff, such as the administrative lieutenant, administrative sergeant, knowing that there's going to be a change in procedures and it's only designed to make it more efficient in the workplace. So the final step would to be implement the system, and after that to actually evaluate it and review the system and make any modifications if needed. So different teaching techniques can be used to make this a successful resolution to the conflict by the supervisors using a hands-on approach on the changes of the different accounting procedures. Also, the training resources can be available online through a private shared web portal from all the different stations. So they can go on there and pull the most latest procedures and for each for accounting, payroll, purchasing, and accounts receivable. And the manager can also address a conflict by listening to their staff and just learning to see what works, what doesn't work, and what can be modified to make it even more effective. So thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you have a great week. Here's my list of references as well.